This is Chapter 17, The Egypt Hens. The Mendozas left immediately after Maria, pale and miserable, emerged from El Patron's apartment. El Patron decamped not long afterward with his bodyguards. Matt was alone again. He couldn't talk to Maria or Tam Lin, but knowing they still liked him made all of the difference. He studied things he thought they would approve of. He read survival manuals for Tam Lin and long, confusing book about St. Francis to please Maria. St. Francis loved everyone from murderous bandits to beggars covered with running sores. There was a picture of one of these even in the book. He called a cicada to his finger and said, "Welcome, Sister Cicada. Praise God with your joyful music." St. Francis spoke to everything, Brother Sun, Sister Moon, Brother Falcon, Sister Lark. It gave Matt the warm feeling that the world was one loving family, very unlike the Alaprons. But would St. Francis have said, "Brother Clone"? Matt's warm feelings evaporated. He wasn't part of the natural order. He was an abomination. No matter where he was, Matt couldn't rid himself of the sensation he was being watched. It was bad enough to know the security guards spied on him, but far worse to think of Felicia. She was as awful as Tom, only no one suspected it because she seemed so meek. She reminded Matt of one of those jellyfish he'd seen on TV. They floated around the ocean like fluffy pillows, trailing through venom to paralyze a swimmer. Why hadn't he realized Felicia hated him? Well, to be honest, because most people hated him, it was really no big thing. But her malevolence was in a class by itself. Once a week, Matt went to the stables and asked for a safe horse. Before going out, though, he tried to have a conversation with Rosa. He didn't like her. He wasn't sure why he wanted to wake her up, only it seemed horrible to see her so changed. If there was anything left of Rosa, it was locked in an iron box. He imagined her banging on the walls with her fist, but no one came to open the door. He read that coma victims hear everything people say and need voices to keep their brains alive. And so Matt talked to her about everything he'd seen and done that week. But all Rosa ever replied was, "Do you wish another horse, master?" Now, let's think about Matt. Back in Chapter 5, Rosa did a real number on him, really changed his whole character, made him lock himself away. Do you think that it's right for him to forgive her and want to wake her up? What do you think about Matt's character? You did a character study on him. Do you think that even though we have always seen Matt struggle with his emotions, what do you think about this paragraph? Why do you think the author chose to put that in here? Okay, think about that. After an hour or so of this, Matt rode off to the oasis. "Brother Sun," he called, "would you mind cooling down a bit?" Brother Sun ignored him. "Good morning, Sister Poppies," Matt called to the sea of blinding white flowers. "Hello, Brother and Sister Egypts." He greeted a row of brown-clad workers bending over in the fields. One of the most amazing things about St. Francis and his followers was how they gave away their possessions. St. Francis couldn't wait to strip off his shirt and sandals whenever he saw a poor person without them. Brother Juniper, one of St. Francis's friends, even went home naked a lot of the time. Matt thought El Patron would have a heart attack if anyone told him to give away his belongings. Once Matt passed through the hole in the rock, it was as though he'd arrived in another world. The hawks circled lazily in a bright blue sky, the jackrabbits crouched in the shade of the creosotes. Fish nibbled bread from Matt's fingers, and coyotes darted forward to gobble down chunks of his sandwiches. None of them cared whether he was a human or clone. Matt laid out a sleeping bag under the grape arbor and used a rolled-up blanket for a pillow. He placed a thermos of orange juice within reach and selected a book. This was living. The air smelled faintly of creosote and the yellow sweetness of locust flowers. A large black wasp with scarlet wings ran over the sand, searching for the spiders that were its prey. "Hello, Brother Wasp," Matt said lazily. The insect dug furiously in the sand, found nothing, scurried on. Matt opened A History of Opium, one of the books Tam Lin had left in the chest. He expected it to be a manual about farming, but it was nothing quite different and exciting. Opium, Matt read, was a whole country. It was a long, thin strip of land lying between the United States and Aztlan. 100 years ago, there had been trouble between the United States and Aztlan, which was called Mexico in those days. Matt vaguely remembered Celia saying something about it. Many thousands of Mexicans had flooded across the border in search of work. A drug dealer named Mateo Alarcon. Matt sat up straight. That was El Patron's name. 100 years ago he would have been a strong and active man. This person, the book went on to say, was one of the richest and most powerful men in the world, even though his business was illegal. Drugs? Illegal? Thought Matt. What a strange idea. Now, let's pause there. How crazy is that? Of course they're illegal. And the fact that, that Matt thinks it's strange is definitely very different. Mateo Alarcon formed an alliance with other drug dealers and approached the leaders of the United States and Mexico. You have two problems, he said. First, you cannot control your borders, and second, you cannot control us. Wow, that's pretty profound. He advised them to combine the problems. If both countries set aside land along their common border, the dealers would establish farms and stop the illegal flow of illegals. In return, the dealers would promise not to sell drugs to the citizens of the United States and Mexico. They would peddle their wares in Europe, Asia, and Africa instead. It was a pact made in hell, said the book. Matt put it down. He didn't see anything wrong with the plan. It seemed to have done everything it promised. He looked at the title page. The author was Esperanza Mendoza. An Anti-Slavery Society of California was the publisher. Now that he looked more closely, he saw the book was printed on cheap yellow paper. It didn't look like something you could take seriously. Matt read on. At first, the book explained opium was simply a no-man's land, but through the years it had prospered. Different areas were ruled by different families, much like the kingdoms of medieval Europe. A council of farmers was established, which dealt with international problems and kept peace between the various farms. Most families controlled the small areas, but two were large enough to dictate policy. The McGregors ruled the land near San Diego, and the Alarcons had a vast empire stretched from central California all across Arizona and into New Mexico. So if you can visualize the United States, the southern part, we can really tell that the United States was given to opium. So we've now lost part of Central California across Arizona into New Mexico and down. And so it's important to realize that this is definitely a change from what we have now. Also, I want you to understand right here where he's talking about, much like the kingdoms of medieval Europe, this is an illusion. We know that many years ago they would have the Knights of the Round Table. They would have a council that would make decisions about all the lands. So they're referring to that medieval Europe when we're talking about a council of farmers and how they were the ones who made the decisions. Gradually, opium changed from a no man's land to a real country, and its supreme leader, dictator, and Führer was Mateo Alarcon. Matt stopped reading so he could savor those words. His heart swelled with pride. He didn't know what a Führer was, but it was obviously something good. A more evil, vicious, and self-serving man could hardly be imagined, wrote Esperanza on the next line. Matt threw the book away as hard as he could. It landed in the water with its pages open. How dare she insult El Patron? He was a genius. How many people could build a country out of nothing, especially someone as poor as El Patron had been? Esperanza was simply jealous. But Matt sprung up to rescue the book before it was entirely ruined. Tamlin had given to him, and that made it valuable. He dried it out carefully and packed away in a metal chest.